While at Newport, I had the opportunity to mull over some of the cases that I discuss here, particularly those of Abraham Lincoln and Winston Churchill, the two greatest war statesmen that the English-speaking world has produced. I should add here that a second impetus for this book came from a long-time fascination with the four statesmen discussed in chapters 2 through 5, particularly Churchill. I was awed, as so many people are, by the courage that enabled him to save Great Britain from surrender to Hitler's Germany. Yet the more widely I read him, particularly his biography of his great ancestor, the Duke of Marlborough, published in the 1930s, the more I came to think of him as a certain kind of theorist of the conduct of war. Uniquely, he was not merely a statesman, but a student of statesmanship. Furthermore, the more one learns about his conduct of his war, the more one realizes that the image purveyed by some memoirists and historians of an impulsive, erratic, absurdly romantic aristocrat is, in fact, incorrect. He understood modern warfare better than did his generals, and he acted with far more method than politicians today. Historians of the last 20 years have dealt increasingly unkindly with his conduct of the wars he fought, as, to a lesser extent, they have also criticized Ben-Gurion. I confess to a certain desire to enter the lists on behalf of Churchill and his colleagues in this book. Such an admission opens me, I well realize, to accusations of hero worship, a practice out of keeping with the temper of these times, which too often prefers accounts of a politician's sexual peccadilloes to reflection on his practice of the political art. Moreover, since great political leaders are by definition unusual, we are unfamiliar with them. "Great men are so rare that they take some getting used to," remarks Henry Kissinger. Furthermore, it seems to me that the scholarly disciplines of political science, and to a lesser extent history, have increasingly distanced themselves from psychological sympathy with their subjects. A belief in the greatness of statesmen puts in jeopardy theories built on descriptions of social forces or institutions, or systematic explanations such as rational choice. The statesmanship of outstanding individuals was once a popular and legitimate subject of inquiry. This is no longer true. The professionalization of the academy has meant that many scholars have had a narrower range of personal experience and perhaps a narrower set of social acquaintances than was the case in the past. Samuel Eliot Morison once said, "The great historians, with few exceptions, are those who have not merely studied, but lived." And he told the veterans of World War II that their war experience would enable them to read man's doings in the past with far greater understanding than if they had spent these years in sheltered academic groves. Morison's students, like the master himself, learned much from their personal exposure to the shocks of war. Succeeding generations, however, have become more insulated from a world of practice, and the upshot is often a history that shows remarkably little sympathy for the cares and burdens of political leaders. Edmund Wilson once observed about literary critics that the relation of the professor to his subjects is 9 times out of 10 a strained and embarrassing one. The professor would be made most uncomfortable if he had to meet Whitman or Byron. He would not like him. He does not, in fact, like him. Mutatis mutandis, the same holds true of many military historians. The purpose of this book is not, however, to defend the reputations of its principal subjects. The purpose is rather to make the nature of the challenges and complexities they faced more comprehensible, and this book does unabashedly accept the notion that there are, occasionally, great statesmen whose skill in the politics of war exceeds those of the average run of political men and women. I will not pretend to encompass the whole of each man's war direction. Each has attracted the attention of authors whose works run to many volumes. Rather, this book explores the performance of these 4 men as war leaders as a way of illuminating the perennial problem of civil-military relations in wartime. It focuses on certain key traits or characteristics rather than the totality of their experience, and it makes no apology for not providing a comprehensive account of each leader's efforts, which could only produce a superficial text. Arguments from the experience of exceptional persons make some uneasy.